think if we are ready, we can begin.
Perfect. Mark, I think I need to begin on
You
this
do.
one. Yeah, perfect. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting. The first item on the agenda is the election of a chair for the municipal year. Can I have a proposer and a nomination? Sorry.
I would like to nominate Councillor Brunel Walker.
Perfect. Is there a seconder for that nomination?
Seconded. Yeah.
Perfect. And any other nominations? No, doesn't look like it. So, Councillor Brunel Walker, you're elected chair for the municipal year. I'll hand over to you now.
Great. Thank you very much for that. The next item is to elect a vice chair for the year. And I would like to propose Councillor Guy Gilby from Bracknell Forest Councillor, if someone can second.
I can second. Seconded.
Oh. Any other nominations? No, brilliant. Thank you very much. Congratulations to Guy as well. I think great to have Guy as vice chair. I think it's a great strength for the board. Item 2 is to receive any apologies for absence, and I just would like to use this item just to make sure that we have the full list of people. I think there's some changes or new people added late, so I just would like to go through this list to make sure we have a complete record of if everyone here is expected. Sorry, if everyone is expected is here, etc., and if we've had any new additions to the list. So, any apologies from anybody?
I've received apologies from Councillor Ashbury. I believe we're expecting Councillor Hode from Surrey Heath in his place, and Councillor Keith Dibble is being subbed for by Councillor Julie Hall.
Brilliant. Okay. And then have we had any updates on Hampshire County Council?
Yes, we have, Chair. We've got Councillor Chris Dawn, who's attending his first meeting today. And I believe I've seen him amongst the attendees.
Wonderful. Thank
you. Morning, all. I'm afraid I was passed this basically yesterday, which came as a bit of a surprise. But I've been a district councillor.
Surprise.
Yes, indeed. I've been a district councillor for 6 years, and I was a parish councillor here in Crondall for 12 years before that, which is quite close to the Thames Basin Heath area. So I'm reasonably familiar with a lot of the history of it, which I suspect is why I've been jobbed.
Wonderful and welcome. And I think as part of this, and apologies, this is a slightly disjointed apologies, but this is the first meeting after all the changes. Just want to make sure we have everyone lined up. Julie, welcome as well. Thank you for that. Chris, I'm sure that we'll be reaching out to kind of give you a better briefing and understanding, bring you up to speed and everything else. But welcome back to all of those returning faces once again, and welcome to those that are subbing for the first time or for a repeat time, and those that are joining us for the first time, Chris. We'll move on to the next item, which is to the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held.
Chair.
Sorry, Guy.
May we take this as an opportunity to acknowledge the role that Councillor Glenn played in the board for all these years?
That's a very good point, actually, as well. Thank you for reminding me. So colleagues will notice, obviously, that our former friend and colleague, Jonathan Glenn, is no longer a councillor and therefore had to step down and step away from this as well. I wanted to mark for the record, and I think Guy and I both wanted to do this, and I'm hoping that all members of the board feel the same way, that it would be remiss of us not to mark formally in the minutes of this meeting the thanks of this board to Jonathan for all of his contribution to the board over the years that he served on it. I worked very closely with him on the finance board, and we're coming on to trying to fill some of those gaps later on. His knowledge, his enthusiasm, his just everything that he contributed to this board will be very sorely missed, and I will miss working with him, as I know we all will. His contribution was enormous. There is a draft letter of appreciation and thanks, which is working its way sort of through. I've forwarded on to a few other people for comments and feedback. I will share, once we have a final clean copy of that, I will be sharing that with everybody. We intend to send a letter of thanks through the council to him. That's set up. We've got the right people to contact that will pass that letter on through the leader of the council. I spoke to the leader of his council and passed on my thanks, and he's going to be speaking to him as well. So I think for the record, I would like to mark this board's thanks to Jonathan for all of his contribution over the time that he served and for everything that he has done for the Thames Basin Heath over his time of service. He will be sorely missed. I'm not sure if anybody else would like to say anything, but I think I would like that recorded in the minutes as a formal vote of thanks. Excellent. Okay, so now moving on, minutes of the previous meeting of the 4th of December. Are there any issues that people would like to raise or matters of correction? And if not, could I ask for somebody who was at the meeting to move that we accept them?
Moved.
Councillor,
Tim Southern moved.
Thank you. Anybody not in agreement with the minutes? Okay, in which case we'll move on. Thank you for that. The next sort of main substantive on the first substantive item on the agenda, I need more coffee, is the Strategic Access Management and Monitoring Project Update, which is on page 7 to page 52 of the agenda pack. Who is kicking off this update?
That'll be me. Hi.
Welcome, welcome.
Can you all hear me okay?
Little distance, but I think it's all fine.
Okay, I think my fan interrupts it a little bit. What about now? Is it better?
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. It's just loading my presentation. Took a couple of tries earlier. That works? Okay, yeah. So welcome to the SAM project update, where we'll be sharing what we've achieved during November to April. I'm Zoe Shorter, I'm the project manager, and I'll be presenting alongside Kay.
Hi, I'm Kay, I'm the senior warden for the project, also presenting alongside Sonia.
Welcome, welcome. I think we can all see the cover slide of the deck.
And if you have any questions, there you go, Sonia.
Sorry, I'm Sonia. I've been with the team since 2023 as a warden and now as the data officer in the last month.
So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end of our presentation. Either pop them in the chat or put your hand up, and we'll be sharing our usual updates plus a summary of the SAM project evaluation. So we'll dive straight in, as most of you are quite familiar with us now. So here's an update on the team changes since we last spoke to you in December. Myself and Kay are now permanent in our positions as project manager and senior warden since about February and March. Eloise, our previous comms officer, left the team in March, and we'd like to acknowledge her positive contribution. And you have just met the lovely Sonia, our new data officer. Finally, plans to expand the education team will commence following confirmation of the revised salary budget, which I'll cover at the end. So, seasonal wardens. The recruitment went really well, and we've got 5 wardens appointed. We're pleased to welcome Mick, Paula, and Sarah and Sophie. Oh, sorry, Mick, Sarah, and Sophie, alongside 2 returning seasonals from last year, Paula and Hannah. Induction commenced in February, with remaining staff joining in March due to revised recruitment processes causing staggered start dates. Induction was delivered in 3 phases, resulting in slightly reduced wardening hours during that period. So here's our current team for the season, and you'll note that Mike Taylor has since left at the end of December after giving 11 years to the project. On to wardening with Kay.
So the project provides an on-the-ground wardening service across the SPA. It's 5 days a week from mid-September to February, and then 7 days a week during the ground nesting bird season. So over winter, the team supported partner-led volunteer work parties across the SPA, strengthening relationships, engaging local communities, promoting our key messages and contributing to heathland management. Partners included the RSPB, Surrey Heath Borough Council, Horsell Common Preservation Society and more. Following a review of the previous winter, we prioritised under-supported partners. Also, between October and February, the team held 4 half-day planning sessions to review the previous season and agree priorities for this season. So the season launched on Sunday, the 1st of March, with full team coverage. We logged 32.8 wardening hours, including pop-ups at Ash Ranges and Hawley MOD, as shown in the pictures. The team engaged 172 people, only 16% who were previously aware of the project. So following its success last season, seasonal wardens were again allocated core focus sites, reducing training needed and enabling 4 of our 5 wardens to be operational by the 1st of March. This is expected to improve effectiveness through stronger site familiarity and rapport with locals. Increased coverage continues on the 5 busiest sites of Horsell, Chobham, Whitmore, Rosser and Pause and Caesars Camp, via targeted weekend and bank holiday wardening and pop-ups. In March to April, 9 of these additional activities delivered 276 engagements, only 18% of who were previously aware. Expanding pop-ups across the whole SPA also remains a priority due to higher engagement rates. So between March and April, 23 pop-ups achieved 810 engagements with over 77% a new audience. Evening wardening between the hours of 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. is also being increased this season to deter antisocial behaviour, guided by landowner and public feedback. So on to events and Heath Week. Key events over the winter and spring period included 2 Christmas wreath making events, including one alongside a Heathland Hounds walk, engaging 57 people. Participation in a February half-term event at Hook Community Centre with almost 200 engagements, reaching a largely local audience already using the nearby Hazley Heath. And for International Day of the Forest on the 21st of March, we ran a joint pop-up at Bramshill Forest with Forestry England for the 4th consecutive year, helping visitors understand why the forest forms part of an SPA mostly made up of heathland. So the Easter holidays were full of events. During week 1, we had our annual Wildfire Awareness Week. We had 4 SPA events delivered with Surrey, Royal Berkshire, and for the first time, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Services, plus Hampshire County Council. These events directly supported public engagement and education on wildfire risk, and we achieved 238 engagements, which was up from 129 last year. Week 2 of the Easter holidays had our Spring into Nature events. We had 3 SANG-based events, so 1 per county, designed to encourage behaviour change by promoting alternative sites to the SPA. Hart District Council joined us for the 2nd year at the Heartland Country Park event. We had 164 attendees and promotion was via local schools and posters on the SPA. Feedback suggested this was effective, with one family at the Peacock Meadows SANG event commenting they always walked on the nearby SPA but wanted to explore somewhere new. Other positive feedback included a family commenting the wardens were very friendly and my children enjoyed the trail and creative activities. And lastly, for events, we've got our planning for Heath Week 2026, which is Saturday the 25th of July to Sunday the 2nd of August, is well underway and continues to grow more refined each year, with a continued focus on partnership delivery, education, and community engagement. We've extended it from 7 to 9 days this year to improve our spread of events and reduce pressure on staff. We've got 18 events scheduled, including 9 delivered in collaboration with partner organisations such as Surrey Fire Service, Chobham Common Preservation Committee, the Amphibian Reptile Conservation Trust, and more. We have the return of Secrets of the Common for the 3rd year, focusing on historic life on the Heath. Delivery of this event has also been adapted in partnership with Hampshire and Isle of Wight Amphibian and Reptile Group to address previous capacity, parking and booking challenges of their event. Following last year's success, we're again rolling out revised event formats at Hazley with Hart District Council and Horsell with Horsell Common Preservation Society, replacing single guided walks with static events offering shorter regular walks to increase accessibility and engagement. The Hazley event will also move location and to a weekend to further increase attendance. And I'll hand over to Sonia.
Okay, I'll give a brief update on the wardening data for this winter, which covers the period November 25 to April 26.
Mark, before anything happens, I have a couple of questions on that presentation.
You're mute, Mark.
Sorry, desperately trying to find the unmute button. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, thank you very much. Two points. First of all, the Heath Week. Can you identify a programme for the Heath Week and let us all know? Those 18 published engagements, very relevant to a lot of people around here, and I would like to publicise those events around people in our area. And the second thing is that Hartley-Wintney has a very good fete. The first, I think it's the first or second, first Saturday in the month. And that would be a very good area for you to come and talk about the heathlands, because Hartley-Wintney, as you know, is surrounded by heathlands. So that's for next year. Perhaps you would look up the Hartley-Wintney fete, which is a very popular event. 7,000 or 8,000 people come there every year, so it's well worthwhile having a booth there. It's run by Hart Rotary, so perhaps you'd take that into your consideration for next year.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, we'll be covering a bit more about how you can see the events online in our comms section, and I'm sure Nikki, our comms officer, she's in the meeting today, will be taking details down of that fate you've mentioned, because that does sound like a really good opportunity. Thank you. Guy?
Great.
Yeah,
That's a good
apologies, Chair. I know this is not Q&A right now, but as Tim mentioned the idea of the fate, maybe there's something that board members can do to help, which is feedback to comms where we think there are events in our areas where we think the team's engagement might be worthwhile. So, for example, we have a Crowthorne Carnival, which I think would be a perfect opportunity for a stall. Probably not this time round, it's a little too short notice, but I certainly think for the future, and I know Mark's familiar with the carnival as well, and I'm sure agrees that that would be an excellent opportunity. So maybe if there's a round robin email at the end to say, if you know of things like that in your area, please do let comms know, and we will consider it as part of our forward thinking.
Yeah, that would
That's a
be
very good
excellent.
shout.
Yeah, we're always looking for opportunities of how we can reach further using, we do use a lot of parish council magazines and things like that, but there's so much that we could do. That'd be really helpful to have your input. Thank you. I'm just gonna go back to Sonia. Here you go, Sonia.
Okay. Okay, so wardening hours were lower than last year, mainly due to the reduced staffing, as mentioned previously. So the total number of people reached via wardening was down too. However, the quality of each hour held up, and that's what this chart shows. It's interactions per warden hour for each winter dating back to 2016. And you can see the dip in the middle is the pandemic. The trend is what matters. The rate has roughly doubled since 2016, and this winter's 2.3 is among the highest we've recorded, second only to last winter. So even with fewer hours, each hour of wardening is reaching more people than it used to. Moving on to awareness. This is the awareness measure covering the winter period since 2016. So this is the share of people we spoke to who already knew about the project. It dropped sharply during the pandemic to around 15%, and it's been climbing back since. This winter, it's at about 30%, the highest since the pandemic, and heading back towards the 30 to 40% we saw before 2020. So to sum up, whilst we've wardened a few hours this winter because of the staffing, each hour of wardening stayed highly productive. The engagement rate is among the best we've recorded, and public awareness is at its post-pandemic high. I'll now hand back over to Kay for communications.
Sorry, there's a question from Chris.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you for that. I'm intrigued slightly at this sort of interaction with people. Is that because you think there's more people there, so you have a better chance of interacting with them, or the wardens are picking better routes that interact with people more, or what? So just wondering what was driving it.
We've certainly sort of targeted strategies where we're looking at sort of wardening at busier times, times of the day in busier areas, and certainly also focusing with our pop-ups to engage areas where we're going to catch the most people. So part of it is strategy.
Okay, thank you.
So on to communications. So in terms of media engagement, I believe it was Jonathan Glenn who mentioned at a previous meeting he thinks we need to get on the news. So we did action this, and with a little help from Royal Holloway, we were approached by the BBC to discuss dogs and ground nesting birds. We met with reporters at Chobham Common to record an interview, which was later featured on BBC National News back in March. Radio 5 also reached out, and Zoe had a live interview with them later that day. So we currently have 89 live SANG web pages. Oakwood Park SANG in Shinfield, Berkshire opened last year, so we published the web page in January. We'll make a follow-up visit over summer to update the web page with more appealing summer photos. And we're keen to publish the Brookwood Farm Country Park webpage, however, the official opening is delayed. The SANG was to undergo some improvement works over winter and is currently still waiting interpretation panels. We will revisit and take some summer photos before the webpage goes live to boost the appeal. So we provide a wide variety of content to appeal to different audiences, from Heathland wildlife to our key messages, wardening and education activity, event publicity, Heathland hounds, and SANG promotion. So this figure shows follower growth on social media platforms since 2021. Followers to our Facebook and Instagram accounts continue to grow, and comms are keen to trial some social media pop-ups to encourage visitors to follow our accounts and engage with our content. Comms officer Nikki joined a TVH pop-up at Blackbush Airfield in the spring to gauge visitor use of social media. Facebook was popular with the older demographic and Instagram with the younger. However, parents of a young family reported using Facebook to follow their child's school page. Facebook remains popular for event advertising. Moving on to this figure, which shows our reach on social media and the TVH website during the period of September 2023 to April 2026. Facebook continues to be our most popular social media platform. We saw our usual expected peak in March as we entered the season, and we expect to see a second peak in the lead up to Heath Week.
Chris, you got a question?
Yes, apologies if some of this has been asked before, but we're seeing it sort of fairly fresh. I can see the Twitter line heads to zero, obviously now called X. Is that because you're just no longer engaged with it? Which I could understand. And whether or not you were thinking of picking up something like TikTok, which seems to be very popular amongst the much younger generation.
Vicky, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So yeah, Twitter, we did decide, what X as it's now known, as you say, we did decide to drop in January of this year, just because we were hearing lots of murmurs amongst the partnership that they were no longer using it, and we just weren't comfortable with using it as a platform anymore.
Kind
of, yeah, with our more successful platforms anyway, it just kind of wasn't worth persevering with it. Yeah, so that's now gone. In terms of TikTok, it's something we have considered. We have to kind of weigh up that our most common demographic out on the heaths who respond to our social media is kind of middle-aged women. So we've got to weigh up how popular we think TikTok would be with the younger generations. But certainly in terms of those that are visiting the heaths and perhaps having campfires and barbecues, things like that.
That was a bit that was worrying me. Yes.
Yeah,
it could stuff. Yeah.
It could be good for that audience. We are obviously down one communications officer at the moment, so I think that's probably something for the future when we're back up to capacity. Yeah.
Thank you.
As far as I'm aware, as a part of a government organisation, we're not really allowed to use TikTok as a platform because it's owned by China or something. But I could be wrong. I think that's.
I think it's one of those that we need to just be mindful, ever mindful of what channels work, which platforms work. You know, we're using the two main channels that we're using effectively on social. You know, we're seeing good things from it. I think, you know, keep one eye on the future about what the next platform might be. I mean, I don't use TikTok because it just looks like it's lots of people dancing. But then it's not my demographic. Whereas my children don't use Facebook that much, but I still do. And Instagram, I still use, but probably not as effective as I could. So I think it's great to see the level of engagement. And as we get more people, you know, as we get the new sort of comms head in, etc., it's always worth just keeping an eye on the future. But TikTokers, they all have their benefits and disbenefits depending on which channel they're in.
Yeah, I have exactly the same with my teenage boys.
Did find out to my horror that I actually did have a TikTok account, which I didn't actually realize. Julie.
Hello, hi. I'm subbing in for Councillor Keith Dibble. So everyone may know the answer to this question already, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. I just would like a bit more information around why you are monitoring public awareness and why you are monitoring your comms and engagement. So what is the overall driver and objective for that? So is it to increase awareness of areas for people to go? Is it to a campaign for people so people know how to behave in the areas, or is it just to show that, you know, the actions that you're taking are worthwhile because it's increasing people's involvement in the areas? I'm just a little bit unclear about what the overarching objectives are of doing the communications and public awareness monitoring. I don't know if that's
so
an odd question, but I just don't know.
Our team plan is to get everyone in Surrey, Hampshire and Berkshire, so everyone that uses those spaces, to connect, protect and respect the heathland. And we do that through on-site engagement, education and monitoring. So that our three key messages are pause on paths, please, make use of alternative green spaces or green space on your doorsteps, and be wildfire aware. So in order for us to know that what we're doing is effective and working, we monitor our engagement levels on whether that's on site or online, in order to see how effective we're being and if things are working.
And does that include kind of surveys and stuff of visitors, so that you that evaluate whether or not the activities are worthwhile, or if they've got any feedback or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'll hear a bit more as we go on, but yeah, we record written feedback, and we record the level of engagement we're having with people, and you'll hear some of our education stats later too. And at the end, we'll go into the different monitoring that we do on the SANGs and the SPA.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Moving on.
Oh, Victoria.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just wanted to say. Sorry, just wanted to say, our colleagues let me know that there's a Teams pop-up blocking part of the screen on the live YouTube stream. I think it's been there for a while.
I'll come out.
Thanks.
Good catch.
Should we go back to Kay then for Waggy Walks Week?
So Waggy Walks Week was a new initiative for 2026. Heath and Hounds ran the first Waggy Walks Week in March, celebrating the SANG network. It provided different opportunities to promote green space on your doorstep walks or SANGs, as well as the wonderful and friendly Heath and Hounds community group and share engagement games. Social media advertising resulted in a good number of views to the new web pages too. So with hot weather predicted over the Easter holidays and in response to subsequent fires, we increased our Be Wildfire Aware content. Communications Officer Nikki made introductions between Surrey Fire and Rescue Service and a Horsell-based video producer called Dreaming Fish Productions for a wildfire-themed Surrey Uncommon episode, which you can view on YouTube. And the event programme, Heath Week overview and photos from last year have been sent to local parish councils for inclusion in magazine articles and newsletters. Events, I believe, have now been uploaded to the website What's On Calendar. Here's an example of a high-performing post from December 2025. Engagement usually decreases over the winter months, but this seasonal ward and recruitment post attracted over 5,500 views. It also led to 31 links to the website recruitment blog.
That's good.
And we continue to share blogs to the website. Comms Officer Nikki, as a dog owner, wrote a blog about responsible dog ownership. It was published over a month after the start of the season to support Paws on Paths messaging and other positive behaviours. Nikki wanted to highlight that it's possible to be a wildlife enthusiast and a responsible dog owner. And we continue to create content for Heaths and Hounds Facebook group and Instagram and review monthly metrics. Facebook posts created by members still prove popular, as do posts containing information important to dog owners, such as the return of grazing cattle to Wildmoor Heath. And I'll pass back over to Zoe.
Our Amazing Heathlands education programme, led by Education Engagement Officer Michael Jones, inspires responsible behaviour in school children, teachers and families by sharing our key messages and contributing to citizen science, while fostering stronger nature connections and promoting responsible visiting. 2026 so far has been the busiest year for Our Amazing Heathlands programme yet. This year is set to break the records for sessions delivered and engagements. During this period, 51 schools were engaged, including 35 within the 5-kilometre buffer zone, and 15 of these within 1 kilometre of the SPA boundary. A further 16 were reached through Junior Citizen in Elmbridge, a new addition to the schedule this year, supporting Elmbridge Borough Council by delivering wildfire education to Year 6 pupils. Here is a table of the annual education stats. Last year saw the records broken for both sessions delivered and engagements, and this year the impact and influence of the programme within local communities will expand further. Michael has developed a series of sessions with Church Crookham Junior School to strengthen pupils' connection to nature, increase awareness of their nearby heathland, and encourage them to look after it. An introductory assembly was followed by an Eco Warriors-led poster competition to promote the Paws on Paths Please message to visitors. Almost 350 pupils entered the poster competition. Winners were selected for each year group, and their winning posters are now displayed at the very nearby Long Valley. The MOD intends to celebrate this work with a press release to share it more widely as part of its Training Estate public safety campaign. We worked with Year 4 pupils, delivering classroom and heathland sessions to support their local area studies. Pupils then produced the Lost Words inspired spells about ground nesting birds, which are now displayed in the classroom. After the session, the teacher got in contact and said when she read out an article about the recent increase of nightjar population in the New Forest, the children all cheered enthusiastically. So the children were truly invested in the success of heathland and its species, which is lovely to see. Wildfire awareness is embedded across all sessions, with some focusing specifically on wildfire in a heathland context. These are often delivered through partner-led events, enabling engagement with large numbers of pupils. Examples of these are Junior Citizen in Elmbridge and Think Safe in Hart, where we spread wildfire messages to Year 6 children, a pivotal age just before they get a bit more freedom. Collaborative sessions with Surrey Fire and Rescue Service were successfully launched, targeted at schools within 1 kilometre of the SPA heathlands. The session Sessions combine heathland education with wildfire prevention, including demonstrations of firefighting equipment and direct engagement with firefighters. Through this initiative, 502 Year 6 pupils and teachers from 8 Surrey schools took part, gaining an understanding of wildfire risks in their local context and the role of emergency services. Follow-up materials were provided for school newsletters to extend wildfire prevention messaging to the wider school community. A poster competition generated 200 entries showing pupils' understanding of wildfire prevention. Winners have been selected by a wildfire specialist at Surrey Fire and Rescue Service, and the winning designs will be displayed on local heathland sites in the near future. Initial feedback from Surrey Fire and Rescue Service has been highly positive, with the collaboration recognised as an effective and engaging initiative. Progress has also been made in extending these collaborative sessions to Berkshire with the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service, who have agreed to pilot joint wildfire sessions with 3 schools within 1 kilometre, and the potential for expansion next year. The next few slides have some lovely feedback for you to read. It's always overwhelmingly positive from children, and sessions raise excitement and enthusiasm and empower them to take action to help. Teachers also value the sessions for providing inspirational nature experiences whilst ticking off curriculum aims. And it's lovely to see, to think about just how impactful these sessions are. On to Heath and Hounds with Kay.
Just before we deal on that whole education piece, and it's not a top of your conversation to go through now in detail. I mean, as Guy has said in the chat, does Michael ever sleep?
Not that much of it.
Not that much. I mean, again, and I know this is something that Jonathan had mentioned before, and it's something that's come up time and time again. Michael does a truly incredible job. Truly incredible, and those numbers absolutely show the impact that he does. I think we probably need to think longer term about how we can clone Michael and replicate just how we can do more. That education, we know it's working, we know it has an impact, we know it's exploring, we know the impact that it can have in that target market. And Guy and I have talked about this before. I think it would be well worth, as we're looking to the future structures and the future of what we do, whether we add more resource into that education function or look at bringing another head or more into that delivery function to take some of the pressure off Michael, but in order also to enable us to do more and just do more. Guy, you've got your hand up.
Well, I think I'm probably about to say what Zoe's about to say, which is in fact there is a proposal included to expand the education team. And in fact, I was just going to use this as an opportunity to endorse that, because one of our roles, as was explained earlier, is to educate. And I'm absolutely sure Michael cannot be doing any more than he currently is doing.
No, I agree.
And there's still a huge potential to tap into. So I just wanted to, I know it's out of sync with the rest of the agenda, but I wanted to make this an opportunity to endorse the idea and really encourage my colleagues to agree that we do need to expand the education team.
Thank you both. Yes, we'll give you a full financial update on that a bit later, and we'll ask for your agreement.
Keep going.
So Heath and Hounds is run as a private Facebook group, now with over 2,000 members. Heath and Hounds engaged with over 400 dog owners and distributed 148 doggy goodie bags containing leaflets, poo bags and dog treats via wardening and pop-ups between November and April. They remain on track to deliver pop-up coverage across 100% of SPA sites suitable for gazebo-based engagement during the ground nesting bird season. During the sensitive bird nesting season, Heath and Hounds focus on sang promotion to take pressure off the SPA, running 3 waggy walks each month. Their aim is to maximise coverage across sangs within each local authority to ensure widespread opportunity to connect with the community. During Waggy Walks Week, they visited Whitewater Meadows, Wellesley Woodlands and Chantry Woods, and each walk focused on showing dog owners a different game that they could play with their dog to keep them engaged and focused on the walk. Heath and Hounds plan to make this an annual event to highlight the sangs at the start of the ground nesting bird season. Waggy Walks Week has also been adopted by Devon Loves Dogs. And Heath and Hounds joined Hart District Council for Bark in the Park at Edenbrook Country Park. This year it was bigger than ever. Over 800 people attended the event. Heath and Hounds ran a short walk around the sang and a gazebo pop-up to chat to dog owners about wildlife-friendly dog walking on the SPA and promote local sangs. They encourage dog owners to take part in the Heathland Challenge, which aims to highlight the skills and behaviours required to protect Heathland wildlife. Each step in the challenge focuses on one of the points of the Good Dog Guide and allows them to discuss management tools and training. Owners had to bag and bin the fake dog poo, demonstrate a sit and wait, recall their dog and keep paws on paths, amongst other skills to show that they were SPA ready. The aim is also to celebrate those who are walking their dogs in a responsible way, and every successful team was given a certificate. The Heathland Heroes campaign continues to champion responsible dog ownership, recognising owners who follow paths, observe signage, properly dispose of dog waste, and perhaps more importantly, train and engage with their dogs on walks to keep them focused on them while they are out on the heaths. And over to Zoe for monitoring.
The monitoring programme continues to provide a strong evidence base to inform decision making. Breeding bird surveys are ongoing, delivered by 2J's Ecology, continuing the long-term data set that started in 2003. In April, we held a bird surveyors meeting, which brought together surveyors, land managers, planning officers, and members of the board. This included discussion around influences on individual site populations, such as recreational disturbance and land management practices. The bird survey contributed to the National Heathland Bird Survey, which is the first of its kind in 20 years, and we hope to hear the results shortly. In relation to visitor monitoring, we completed 85 SANG surveys between October and February, including counts and interviews to gather feedback on site use. Analysis of this data is currently underway. We also continue to operate a network of people counters across the SBA, and we now have a greater capacity to make use of this data. Now, for those of you that couldn't make it to the SAM project evaluation presentation delivered by ICF in March, I'll provide a brief summary of the key findings, our progress since, and next steps. The report will be published to Access to Evidence, and we'll upload it to the website once the NE Natural England Chief Scientist Directorate have prepared it. The evaluation shows the project is performing strongly overall, with 8 out of 11 objectives fully achieved. The remaining objectives are partially met, primarily relating to monitoring and evidencing impact. Importantly, bird populations have remained stable or increased despite development and visitor pressure, demonstrating effective mitigation. Wardening, education, and facilitation are identified as key strengths, with monitoring, education capacity, and digital engagement highlighted as areas for further development. Following the evaluation, a number of actions have already been progressed. As mentioned, a data officer is now in post, Sonia, directly addressing a key recommendation around monitoring. Work is also underway to expand the education service, including approval from the board. However, we do need to include a budget request. Once approved, we plan to begin the recruitment process with Natural England. In addition, a new communication strategy has been developed to take a more strategic approach to online engagement. The evaluation confirms the project is effective, so the focus now is on targeted refinement. Priorities are to strengthen monitoring, particularly around how we monitor behaviour change, and scale the education provision and improve communications. We will take a phased and evidence-led approach to delivery, supported by the increased capacity provided by the data officer. and a further update will be brought to the board in December. The board is asked to note the findings, acknowledge progress, and support this approach. Do we do that now or at the end, Mark?
It would. Let's take it now. It feels like we can. The logical place. Guy.
Before we approve, is it okay, Chair, if I just have a few questions on this?
Yes.
So I suspect this might be more a question for Laura. For those not familiar, Laura Hughes from Natural England. The ICF report obviously included a few, I think, if memory serves, recommendations around how the board itself functions. So I think, for example, there was a recommendation around the board having I don't say oversight, but enabling a conversation about how SANGs are performing in the wider area. I think something along those lines. And I think just an idea of how the board is kind of rejigged to enable better decision making. So I suppose these are kind of questions that I guess are more for Stephen and Laura. Laura, did you have a view on this, and will this be explored as part of future appraisals of the report?
Yeah, so I can come back on that. So my next item, the recommendation, includes a request to approve an agreement of the current terms of the SAM agreement to allow the full review process to take place. So the evaluation that ICF carried out was an evaluation of the SAM project mitigation measures and how effective they're being. I think there's many further stages in the review and production of a fully updated and reviewed agreement. So that will include a review of tariffs and a review of governance and how the board interacts with the project. So I think that possibly is one of the stages that needs to be completed, possibly as a separate item, maybe with a separate working group, and then we come together to decide how we need to scope what that governance and project interaction looks like going forward in a revised agreement.
Heather.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. Apologies to Julie Hall, who was going to raise this. Apologies, Julie, if I've jumped in quickly. I asked a question specifically in relation to this point, that the report that was published dated January 2026 had a very specific recommendation that there was greater interaction between the JSP board and the officers' meetings as well. Speaking personally, I feel that there has been a significantly increasing disconnect between those two meetings and those two groups over recent years. And I feel that as a result of that, there's a certain disconnect between the technical approach that the officers may value and the governance financial approach that the JSP boards have oversight of. And I think when we look to move forward these specific recommendations, it would be really helpful to not just look at the way that the board interacts with the SAM project, but also how the technical officers interact with the board. Because I think, because the board is a changing entity, but the officers have technical oversight, I think the technical officers have insight that would be valuable to the board in terms of how the SAM project is moving forwards. So I'm really just raising this as a flag at this point to say that when Natural England move this forward, the recommendation, and I will read it to you because it's a useful one, if I can find it. So it said it would be beneficial to improve communications between the SAM project team and LPAs, possibly through revision of the JSPB meetings and officer meetings to ensure that they are engaging and foster collective decision making. Increased clarity surrounding purpose and structure of both meetings would allow for clearer focus within meetings and therefore meeting outcomes. So I just wanted to raise that as a flag and request that as communication moves forward between the board and the SAM project, that the officers group is kept in the loop with that, so that we can help to influence the technical aspects of that project. Thank you. I also had a question in relation to the timeframes for how the recommendations are to be moved forward. And I note that there's a report back to the board in December 2026. Again, I would strongly advocate for the technical officers meeting to be engaged in that process with Natural England, because we may have some useful thoughts on that, and it may help those recommendations to move forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we want to make a response on those specific points on the just how we will include how we're going to move this forward?
Yes, I think as the SAM team will be focusing on those ones to do with our project directly, and Laura with the members and officers will be focusing on the ones that are to do with how the board communicate as members and officers and ourselves in the next phase, as Laura mentioned.
Thank you. I think there's some very valid points in there. Guy, comment?
Yeah.
I just thought in terms of, I mean, I'm conscious Laura implied that we could cover this as part of agreeing the extension of the joint framework. But in terms of way forward, it could be that maybe between now and the meeting, maybe myself, yourself, Chair, maybe any other volunteers could liaise with Laura, Stephen, and talk about how we kind of progress those governance issues and how we interact with the officers board.
I think that's an excellent idea, actually. And I think whilst we're looking at this as there's the, I don't want to say air cover, but the legal coverage to allow this to continue whilst the full piece of work is done. I think it's an excellent idea to get that working group just as a quick piece of work together to make sure that we've covered off those gaps, find out the ways that we can improve things moving forward. So if anybody else would like to be part of that, I'm not looking for it to be I don't think it needs to be everybody on this call, but if there's anyone that would like to help put that together, that we can just get that set up as part of the process, so it's covered off. I think the recommendation is, as it said, it came up in January, it's come up before. I think we need to make sure that as we're moving it forward, that it's front and center and it's captured and covered off. Okay, anything else or questions or comments on this? Do you want to show the actual recommendations and where we need to approve the elements? There's a number of things that are in here for the next steps. Just want to make sure everyone is clear on what we're saying and what we're doing. The next sort of staging post is the December meeting, which actually is the next meeting, in case for anyone that's not aware, we don't meet monthly or quarterly. The next meeting is December, so it's not like it's skipping one. Do you want to walk us through? Thank you, Heather. That's very useful. Do you want to guide us through the recommendations? Because I think other than that, it's just beyond what we have on page 7. Liz?
Yeah.
No?
Thank you, and very much hope that Heather will be involved in that that working group as well. And perhaps we could, would that be appropriate to add that as a specific recommendation here as well?
I think it would be useful to have that in there, so then it's documented and recorded.
Thank
Sorry,
you. Thank you.
Julie, your hand's gone up.
Hi. I don't know if this is the right place to raise it, but I just wondered if there should be something either in the working group or a separate group on the impacts of local government reorganisation, because I don't know how that will affect how this group kind of continues to work together, and whether or not we need to kind of assess the impacts of that, because it will inevitably change things in some way, or if that's an agenda item later on, that's totally fine. But I just thought I'd raise it.
No, it's
while we're looking at working groups.
It's an excellent point. there are lots of conversations already underway about what the impact of that will be, the least of which is, or one of which is the impact of where the funds for this group are held and managed by as well. So, you know, there are a huge number of things that we will need to resolve. So I'm not trying to reduce the impact of local government reorganisation, because it is a big thorny issue that we need to work our way through in all the paperwork and all the agreements. So it's not part of this per se, but it's absolutely front and centre of what we'll need to do over the next couple of months. I've got Heather and I've got Guy, but the point is absolutely spot on. Heather first, then Guy.
Thank you, Julie, for raising local government reorganisation. I'm very conscious that the board meets twice yearly and that the next meeting will be in December, and for Surrey authorities, LGR will be live from the following April. So that gives very little time for discussion. I would request that LGR as a standing item on the board agenda, even if there are no updates, to keep that on the table, because in very short time, Hampshire County Council will cease to exist. So this is a multi-million-pound fund that's being managed by an organisation that's heading out the door. So I think it's very pertinent to this board that is a live discussion, please.
So Heather, absolutely. And what we've already sort of discussed in the over the last couple of weeks is if we then need to bring an extra meeting in as we get certainty and clarity, that we will absolutely seek to do that and not wait until December. So we're not going to wait until December then for the councils that will then disappear for next year. We will have an update on the next agenda for the December meeting, which will hopefully have a lot more clarity in it. But then if we need extra meetings prior to that, as we get more, then we will be arranging more sort of shorter notice meetings with as many people together as we can to sort this out. It's absolutely front and center. It's probably one of the biggest issues that we'll need to deal with and resolve over the coming months, outside of the extension of the agreements and everything else. And as you say, you know, the management of the fund, where it sits, etc., is front of that. So absolutely.
I'm also conscious there's a lead-in time with the fund managers, except, for example, if this is being moved around. So it's not something that can be done particularly quickly, I would anticipate. Thank you.
And also it's not something that's not been, it's not something that hasn't already, how can I put this? It's not something that we've suddenly gone, oh, we need to think about this. This is, I think we're waiting for those conversations to be concluded and the certainty of what that will bring. So I think in all probability, we will have an extra meeting in the autumn prior to December, and it will be on the December agenda for sure, for all of the reasons that you've just rightly raised.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be essential. Thank you very much.
Guy.
Funny enough, was basically just to say what you'd finished up with, which is that as chair and vice chair, we've both been liaising with the two Jennies, of course, Jenny Wadham in Hampshire and Jenny Merton in Surrey, to essentially ask, you know, we need to understand what the impact of LGR will be on the project. And I think it's fair to say, Mark, that the response back has been, I promise we're all working on it. We are a bit frenetic at the moment because we talk about Hampshire being out of existence. Well, of course, Surrey County Council and Surrey Heath will be out of existence even quicker than that. But I know that they are aware, and we are putting it on their radar that the project can't be forgotten in this. And as Mark says, there is a view that once, Jenny is here. I do apologise, Jenny. I thought you weren't on this meeting.
My apologies. I thought you weren't here either.
I couldn't join at the start. Apologies, but I am here.
Brilliant. Well, basically,
Good timing.
You know, as you've said in emails to me, you are aware, and we will be in conversation about these things as we know. But I think an autumn meeting, a special meeting, would be useful when we have something to report.
I've got a flurry of hands. Jenny, do you want to say anything on that, or shall I go around the list of other questions?
Is it just worth me clarifying from a Hampshire perspective? So obviously we will continue to exist until April 2028. So we've still got a little bit of time to go yet. It's on our list of something that we need to sort out. However, it's still very early days for Hampshire with an absolutely mammoth task that we have to do. It's one of literally thousands of things that we need to sort out, but it's very much on the list. So it will be considered in good time. But at the moment, I just don't have anything firm to update you on, other than to say it will be sorted by April 28.
I've got whose hand have I got next? I've got Heather's first, then Chris, then Liz.
Sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
Chris.
Thanks. I don't know if you know, Mike, if you run with the people bit selected on the right-hand side, it gives you the list of people in order with their hands up. Makes life very easy. I was just two things. Jenny, I've not met you yet. I'm the Hampshire County Councillor appointed to this, so it'd be good to have a chat offline about where we are with all of this. And clearly they have a similar problem across Hart, Basingstoke and Rushmore councils as they all move forward on the LGR issues. But what I really wanted to just pick up on was some of the bits that were going on a little bit earlier, and apologies for taking it back a bit, but just with some of the PR stuff and pushing things out. Is the team well connected to the comms officers in all of the local authorities? Because certainly at Hart, with my other hat on, we have a great little PR team, and they do like to receive things that they can highlight and push out onto the Hart website and Facebook feeds and so on. So I just wanted to make sure that those are all sort of connected and providing the best connection or opportunities.
I'm happy to answer that one. Yes, we do partnership work with our fellow comms teams. I think, as is the case most of the time with the under-resourced comms teams, is that we're all quite pushed, but we do where we can certainly share each other's posts, particularly on collaborations like wildfire. At the moment, we are doing a lot of cross-referencing of partnership posts. But yes, in an ideal world, we would always do more.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting anything fantastically swept up. It's just making sure that they're getting a copy of your email or whatever, because that's the easiest thing for them, is to just go, yep, copy paste and launch it, and that makes life so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you,
Liz.
Yeah, just to say, I mean, I was a member of the West Surrey Joint Committee previously, the Voluntary Joint Committee, and now I'm on the West Surrey administration for the Shadow Authority. But this is something I have brought up because obviously I'm on this board, so I have brought it up with our head of paid service, and we'll do again, because whilst Hampshire will exist, the rest of us won't. So we can't wait until 28 to decide what the format of this board will be and how things have progressed forward. So it will have to be sorted, but it is something, as I said, that I've raised in West Surrey anyway, and I've got an ongoing meeting anyway with Andy Brown, who is our interim head of paid service at the moment, and I'll raise it again with him, because I think that it's one of those things. There's a huge list of different things that need to be sorted out, but obviously it's really important that it is done by vesting day.
And just to be really clear, we're not proposing that we wait. The Surrey piece is obviously the more imminent change. The biggest challenge of some of this is things like where the funds are held in terms of fiscal responsibility, but we're not. I just want everyone to be really clear that this isn't we're waiting for the last authority in the list to kind of go through the whole process. Just want to be really clear that no one thinks, hell, we're ignoring it.
Exactly. So the date has to be April 27 for it to be sorted by.
I think we will get the meeting set up for early autumn once we have more clarity on some of those sort of at least of the major topics. Whether we'll have all the resolution of all of the points done by then, I don't think we will, but at least we'll have the major points that we'll tick through on the project list and the risk register of kind of what needs to be done and what's still outstanding. For me, the representation from across the piece is one, the secretariat function is another one. The biggest one, which is the longest term one, is the fund management, and we'll come on to some of the funding pieces later on in the working group. So just please don't anyone else think that this isn't being looked at. I think we've discussed this on every chairs call we've had for the last few months. I'm going to move on just in the interests of time. There are a number of specific recommendations for us to review. And I'm just keen that we kind of move through, otherwise we're going to start losing some people over time.
Sure.
Do you want to guide us through the recommendations? I think the one in here, we've got the salary piece as well that we need to have a look at for people.
Yeah.
Do you want to just guide us through the steps and the recommendations, and then we'll move those through?
As in for the evaluation?
For the SAM evaluation, apologies. I just want to make sure that we're just ticking that piece off.
Sorry, I just heard a really loud bang downstairs. I'm just going to have to be back in 1 second.
I think it was just to note the findings,
Yes.
acknowledge progress and support the proposed approach.
And if anybody has anything else to add to this, if not, are we happy to note the next steps that are in here? Sorry, Eddie, you've got your hand up. And then Liz.
All I was going to say, in addition to that, which is on the slide, and as Guy has just sort of summarised quite well, also resolving further sort of mini governance working group to be created with the chair, vice chair, and Heather Lewis as well.
Happy to second.
I think Julie Gill has also volunteered as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Should I carry on? Or?
Liz, your hand's still up.
I was just going to say that exact thing. Thank you for picking that up, just to have it, confirmed as a recommendation. I didn't know whether we needed to propose and second it, obviously.
That's fine. Thank you.
I presume that's carried. I presume that's carried then.
Can I just? Sorry, apologies. Can I just
go on, Heather?
Can I just jump in? I'm not necessarily putting myself forward ahead of anybody else. I'm just one of a number of representatives on the officers' meeting. So we'll have a conversation and see how we as a group want to move it forward. But I'm more than happy to represent if that's helpful. I just didn't want to nominate myself as king. That was all.
I think it'll be really helpful, Heather.
Thank you, Julie, and then we'll move through.
Hi. So I know one of the recommendations here is to strengthen the monitoring and evidencing impact. But along with that, I think target setting should also be part of that. Because if you're strengthening target setting, you know why you're monitoring and whether or not you're reaching your target, and then you can communicate that actually, yes, we have been successful in reaching our targets. And I have had a look around and read some reports and this meeting, and I couldn't see where the targets were and what the overall kind of activity targets and the input, output, outcomes, impact journey was. So I don't know if that could be incorporated into that in terms of how you set collectively the targets.
Okay, that's a good point to raise.
It's really interesting, actually. It's not something we've really done before. Since I've been with the team, all we try to do is do better than we did last year or do better than we did last season. But yeah, that's something to consider, and we'll take that away and discuss it with our new data officer.
Yeah, because I used to be a civil servant for 20 years, and that's just in my blood. I can't help myself. But it's how as well you can evidence the need for finances and resources because you've agreed to XYZ targets, and the finances. If the finances are spent and the targets met, you know that you've got value for money. Kind of thing. So it all kind of goes along with the same monitoring and evidencing why you need it and whether or not it's been successful and what the impact and outcome is. But I could talk infinitum on that. Well, I'll stop now.
I think that's one of the reasons why the data officer role is so pivotal in what we're doing, because it will enable us to have that as well. So I think excellent points, well made, and we'll have to pick that up as we go through. Some things we can, some things we can't, some things are possible, some things are not. I think, when you look again back at the work that Michael does and you see the graph, does it need a target on some of the things you do, or is it just we know that the number are we setting a target for Michael, etc.? I'm just picking on Michael, but do we set a target for Michael, or is it just the value and the inputs and but again, it's all about the tracking and the feedback, some of which are hard, some of which are soft to measure. Okay, I'm going to move us through. Is anybody not in favour of not supporting the recommendations that are in here? If not, we shall take that as approved and we will move on. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my screen to work.
Onto the financial update. At the last meeting in November, the board approved a 4-year financial forecast, which included provision for an anticipated Natural England Pay Award. At that stage, the uplift had not been confirmed, so we reprofiled salary projections using a 3.5% annual increase and identified an underspend in the programme budget to absorb higher costs within the existing 2025-26 budget, particularly in salaries. And since then, the pay award has now been confirmed, with the second stage being implemented from July this year. The updated forecast you can see here reflects a proposed increase in the salary budget of just over £55,000, representing a 10.06% uplift. This reflects the confirmed pay award and also supports the planned expansion of the education team, which was discussed and endorsed at the previous meeting. The evaluation highlighted education as a high impact service, and its enhancement is considered a strategic priority. Importantly, despite this increase in budgeted salary expenditure, staffing levels remain within the agreed ceiling allocated to us by Natural England of 14 full-time equivalent posts. This demonstrates continued financial discipline while allowing targeted investment where it is most needed. In summary, the revised forecasts reflect the confirmed pay award and support targeted investment in priority service areas. The increase in costs is controlled and planned, and staffing remains within agreed limits. The forecast continues to align with the project's priorities and delivery requirements, and the board has therefore requested to approve the revised financial forecast for the period 2026-27 to 2029-2030.
Great, thank you. Any questions on this? Liz?
Thank you for that. Just as a reminder, can you remind me what is under the organisational support and hosting? What comes under that, please? I've totally forgotten.
Oh, that's a good question, actually. Just get up my breakdown. So we pay Natural England a hosting fee every year. Although you'd be surprised how small that amount is for all the work that they do. What does it cover? So that covers, actually not broken down here.
Is it something that, have you got it? Obviously, if not,
yeah, I've got it. So it covers the rent, it covers cleaning and office costs, our uniform and all of our PPE, any training, so learning and development, and yeah, that's about it.
And then the organisational support?
Oh, the organisational support. Oh, sorry, what did I just say? Oh, yeah, that is the organisational support.
So the hosting fee, is that as well to Natural England?
Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, what I've just read out, that's everything that is covered in organisational support, and then the hosting fee is separately there. Laura?
Yeah, I can just give you a bit more information on that. So the organisational support that covers rent and the facilities management for the team's facilities, that doesn't go to Natural England, that goes direct to the landlord and to the companies that provide the facilities management services. The hosting fee goes to Natural England for administering their learning and development opportunities, administering the IT that the team are provided with, and all the admin services that sit behind employing that number of people.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarity.
Thank you. We have Tim.
Yeah, could you just go back to the previous slide? Oh, on the one. Okay, that's all very well for costs. Where's the income coming from?
The income.
How are we going to finance this?
So it's
How are we
already
going to finance
financed.
this if we don't have a statement of where the money's coming from?
I think Jennifer Wadden would like to come in here.
Yes.
Shall I just explain that Hampshire County Council is the administrative body, so we will do the finance report, and I'll take you through that.
Sorry, can you
bit
speak
later.
a bit more clearly? I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah. So Hampshire County Council as the administrative body. So we look at the finances for the overall project, and I will give you an update. There's a report in the pack. I will take you through that in a little bit. This is purely just looking at the Natural England costs associated with the project. So all the income of the project, the total expenditure that includes these Natural England costs, I will run you through a bit later on the agenda.
I think we ought to have had that before the costs, actually. And how can we know if we're going to be able to finance things if we haven't got the money coming in?
There is an investment fund.
However,
Yes.
we'll wait. I'll wait for the other one, but I think it should have been before.
I mean, it's a fair comment. Some of the information from the working group and the finances is in the exempt section at the end. We do have a finance update later on the agenda, and this is the kind of the end result of, this is having gone through all the finances of this very clearly earlier on in the year, and as an ongoing basis, this is a revision to what was there before. I think some of this is, Jennifer will take you through this on the next section, but this is, there is an assurance from the rest of us that this is within what have been talked about before, but your point's well made. But there is the finance section with how the investments and how this is funded through everything else that we do. But
I still have to ask, why is
made.
it exempt? This is a public body. Why is it exempt?
Because some of the exempt section is with because of the nature of the data that's inside it, the investment funds, etc., and the whole working group. Jennifer, do you want to explain why we cover this through the exempt section?
Yeah.
Or anybody else?
Shall I come in? So just how we do this. The finance section will look at the total costs that Natural England have put forward. Natural England need to present their budget to the board for approval first. So what Zoe is saying is that the cost that they're putting forward is within the existing budget that's already been approved. So it's just in effect rejigging what's already there, not asking for additional money, and that approved budget is already included with the financial figures, and we've shown that that's affordable. So if it was additional money that Natural England were asking for, then I think we would need to bring in HCC to confirm that there is the budget to do that in the first place. But this is just rejigging within the existing format. In terms of what's exempt, it is only the advice from Arlen Close as our independent financial advisors, and that's because they are offering independent financial advice to the JSPB, not to the wider public. So it's to keep that exempt. But the finances of the project, the broad overview, that is part of the public meeting. Hopefully that's clear for everybody.
Okay, going to move us back to the recommendation. If there are no other questions, I am happy to propose that we approve the revised financial forecast as laid out in the paperwork. If I can have a seconder.
Councillor Gilby, I'll second.
Great. I think I saw Liz's hand go up as well. Tim? Is that raising a hand of question or support?
How can we approve a revised financial forecast without being able to see where the income is coming from? I'm sorry, I cannot approve this. I cannot agree to approve this until I know where the money's coming from. This is one of the things that happen in so many local government activities. They think about all the costs and what we're going to spend.
Sorry,
and they hardly
Tim,
ever think about where the money's coming from.
I hear your point. I accept the point that you're making, but this is not new money. This is previously approved budgets, and this is just moving the money around within an agreed pot already. This isn't new money. If this was new money, it'd be handled differently or an increased request. This is just within what the board has already approved in the past.
I'm sorry, I can't approve it. I can approve it for this year and possibly next year, but I can't approve it for the following years because we don't know what's going to happen.
Sorry,
If
and
they
again,
approve
just
the
to be
revised
sorry, hang
forecast-
on. Just to be really clear, what we're looking at is just this piece for now future years beyond the forecast will come through as part of the next planning process and everything else we're doing. I accept the point that you're making totally, as we all do. But this is looking at these specific recommendations for what we need to do because of the change of salary uplift to the pay award, etc., and the increased investment for education. Councillor Burmage.
Oh, yeah, I was just only going to make the point, obviously, yeah, we could potentially look at rejigging the order of agendas, but obviously all the reports have been available to the board, including the financial report that's going to follow, for the last 5 working days. Yeah, obviously we've all had an opportunity to see those, obviously not debate them yet, but that information, yeah, is available to us when making this particular decision.
Thank you. So we have we have a proposed and seconded recommendation. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour of the recommendations as laid out? And then any to the contrary? Sorry, I'm having some trouble seeing some of the hands. Is anybody, Tim, are you voting in favour or against or abstaining?
I'm abstaining at this stage.
Okay. Can I just have a show of hands for anybody? Sorry, my camera isn't showing me everyone's hands up. Can you physically put your hands up and show me in favour of this, please? Thank you. And then is there anybody voting against this? I'm not seeing anyone voting against. If I got that wrong, please let me know. And I've got 1 abstention from Tim. So with that, I think unless I've missed anything of voting against, that motion is carried. Oh, sorry, Julie.
As a sub, I don't have enough information to be able to approve this, so I'll just abstain in this instance. And I hope that there'll be more information later on, just for more transparency. But I understand some things will be exempt, but I'll have to abstain.
Understood. Thank you. So I think with that in mind, we have enough votes of approval, so we will record that as approved. And then thank you that, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. That was everything. I was just going to say one last thing is that we've got lots of exciting things planned for the future, and if you would like to read more about what we're doing and what we've done the last 6 months, the report is available to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. We are going to move on to the next agenda item, just while my Adobe decides to unfreeze again. Sorry. We're moving on to agenda item 5 for the proposed continuation of the current terms of the legal agreement.
Yeah, can everyone see my slides coming up just there?
Yes.
Can everyone see those okay? They're not appearing
You're
for me
actually
yet.
in the edit mode. You're sharing rather than the presentation mode. I often find it's easier if you put it into presentation to share it from the taskbar.
How's that looking now?
Perfect.
Excellent.
I've now got a blank screen.
Oh, I think it's a bit slow
working
today.
for me.
Yeah.
It's working for me.
I'm blank.
Excellent. Excellent. So this item hopefully will be brief. So
Now it's come up.
this item is in regards to the planned July 2026 review of the SAM agreement. Now, the context of proposing to formalise the continuation of the SAM agreement is that, as we've discussed earlier in this meeting, there's further work to be underdone on other aspects of creating an updated agreement. So it's not just evaluating and proposing a review and update of the SAM project measures. It will also include things like reviewing and updating any future tariff charges, and reviewing and updating, as Heather raised, governance agreements, communication agreements between the local planning officers group and the JSPB members group. So given that that is likely to take time and take us beyond
July 2026. I discussed earlier in the year with the local planning officers group that it would be useful to kind of formally note that we are proposing to extend the current terms of the agreement, and that's to offer the local planning authorities certainty and continuity over this review period. Now, legal advice to Natural England only, and I must stress to Natural England only, is that there's no formal reason that the agreement needs any formalising to be able to continue. It runs in perpetuity until it's formally varied or replaced. But I think it would be helpful and useful if we note in this meeting that there's an agreement to continue the proposed terms so that the local planning authorities have some certainty in case of challenge from developers over this review period. So the paper was included in the agenda pack. That's previously been sent to the local planning officers group, and any comments received were incorporated into that paper. But it proposes, in summary, that we just extend the current terms of the agreement, of all aspects of the agreement, including governance, the SAM measures and the tariff payments as they currently stand.
Any questions from anybody? Liz?
Yeah, just to raise the head of LGR again, I'm not sure what the responsibility is for any notification to West Surrey or East Surrey, or whether there's any responsibility under the Section 24 notice, which will come into play on the 3rd of July. So I just, perhaps it might be good to have perhaps a word with the respective interim heads of paid services or the 151 officers at the East and West, just to make sure there's nothing that needs to be done on that.
Excellent point, well made. Councillor Burmage.
I just wanted to raise the question of the extension, and we're talking about 12 months. But I just want to understand whether there's a risk that 12 months may be insufficient, because there's still a lot of work going on behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, shall we say, as well. And what is there a sort of contingency plan if things do start to look like they're going to overrun that extension period? Because I'm not sure whether sort of making perpetual agreements to extend is necessarily the right thing to do, but it'd be good to kind of get a picture if that if it does start to look like 12 months is not long enough, to get then a realistic time frame that we can agree to.
I think it's an excellent question.
Yeah, I agree. I think the proposal in the paper is that it's for a minimum of 12 months. And I'd suggest that we don't set a time period, we set a minimum of 12 months, and then we review in this meeting next year with an update at the December meeting on progress and expected timelines for the various elements of the update that are ongoing, such as the communications, the tariffs, the governance.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think part of this also is that this is a technically very important document that, whilst not legally necessarily mandated as required, gives the certainty and surety for all LPAs while they're talking to developers, etc., that no one can say you have an agreement that you haven't discussed and acknowledged needs to be acknowledged as continuing until such time as a new one kicks in. So I think I hear the point. I think it's a very valid point, and I think the key word in here is minimum of 12 months plus the review ongoing, as then we fold in all the LGR pieces of work over the next couple of months as well. So I think this gives us the air cover legally to ensure that we have something that's acknowledged and minuted and approved as moving forward for a minimum of 12 months. And if it's less, it's less. If it's longer, then it's continually under review, as the LGR piece will be continually on the agenda for future meetings. Hopefully that satisfies. Liz.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's important to indicate the intention. However, there is an awful lot left still to you know, whether it's the tariffs and all the other stuff that's been mentioned that needs to feed into this. So whilst I'm a little bit hesitant in agreeing this as if it is carte blanche, and I think we need to maybe have a slight, you know, disclaimer that we agree to it, but subject to those other perhaps bits of information coming forward, which are yet unknown. And whilst there is a general agreement, obviously, in perpetuity for this to exist. So, you know, but equally, I just feel that whilst acknowledging that we want this to continue, I still think we need to add those slight caveats in.
Are there words that you would seek to add to this that would cover that? You can take a moment to think about that, or I'm just looking for some advice and guidance from the officers supporting us that if we don't include the words that Liz is suggesting that we include, that it precludes us or causes us risk or material harm or an instability, or whether this can be captured within the existing continuation of the. I'm conscious this is the continuation of the existing agreement.
Just sort of butt in a little on this point. I mean, this thing always exists. Sorry, Guy. You know, if something happens that's not in the agreement and invalidates the agreement, then you have to deal with whatever's happened. So that always exists as an existential threat or risk to an agreement, and you just have to deal with it when it pops up. So I don't think you need special words to go, we'll do what we need to do.
Just trying to cover off the bases, but and this is why this is the continuation of the existing as opposed to the unknown, which we don't know, or the undiscovered country for the future, which we need to resolve. Guy?
All for just formalising the continuation of this thing, but can we have an opportunity at the end to discuss the membership of the Joint Framework Working Group? Because I'm conscious that membership might need a refresh and it hasn't met for a while.
It's a point. I had that on my list as well. So I think that's one we definitely need to resolve before we finish the call today as well. Liz, your hand's still up.
Yeah, I was just going to say with regards to wording, I'm quite happy with the wording in the report as long as that comes through on the proposed, you know, on the actual recommendation, which is for the extension to take formally, you know, acknowledge that the extension will take place. And to allow sufficient time for and to list the points that are there within the report itself, you know, which is on page 53 of the agenda. But I think that our agreement should really to cover ourselves, you know, those points which are made in the report anyway.
Any other questions? If not, I will. Anyone like to propose?
Councillor Gilby, I'll propose.
I'll happily second. Are there anyone not? Sorry, can I have a show of hands from people on the call? Okay, is anyone not supportive of this? And is anyone abstaining? Okay, that's approved, and we will move on.
Can I just make it clear? I'm just abstaining because of the information about the Section 24 and finding out that further information. And
Understood.
If it has any impact on West Surrey, I might need to vote on it later in another guise. Thank you.
Completely understood, and no, completely understood, and I think, yeah, not a problem. Okay, we will move on in that case, and we'll come back to the other question of the working group later on in the agenda, if that's okay, Guy. We'll just have to pick that up before we move to the next section. Next section is Thames Basin Heaths Strategic Access Management Monitoring Project Financial Update. Pages 55 to 62 of the pack.
Hello, so that is me. I'm Jenny Wadham. I'm Senior Finance Business Partner at Hampshire County Council, and we act as the administrative body. And what I will just try and do is share some slides, so bear with me. Okay, hopefully, can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Yes, thanks.
Yep, good. Okay, so I thought it might be worthwhile just to recap on the financial aims of the project for everybody. We haven't done this in a little while. So obviously we want to fund the project in perpetuity, which in the agreement was set up as 80 years from April 2010, which was the start of the project. What was originally envisaged was that in the early years of the project, we would get income in from the developers in terms of the tariff income. And the idea was that income would then be invested to generate an income that ensures that we could keep going with the project long after the tariff income comes to an end. The annual expenditure of the project is primarily Natural England's costs that we've just seen in running the project, but additionally costs of the administrative body, so Hampshire County Council, in terms of covering the finances, and Arlen Close, the independent financial advisors who were appointed a few years back now. The role of the administrative body, just to be clear what Hampshire County Council do, so we act as the banker. It's really quite limited scope of what we do. So we collect in the income from the LPAs who submit quarterly returns with their income received to us, and also we pay out the money to cover the invoices from Natural England and from Arlen Close as well. And we then provide reports on that to the JSPB meetings. Under the instructions of the board, we will make the investments on behalf of the JSPB, and that comes from because the JSPB is not a separate legal entity in itself. So Hampshire County Council holds the investments in our name on behalf of the JSPB. And we always make really clear, and those who've been on the project for a long time will know that HCC do not give financial advice. That's not what we're allowed to do. So that's why we have Arlen Close. Also worth just noting that the forward projections of the income and expenditure are coming in from the planning authorities and from Natural England. So those are not forecasts that Hampshire County Council are producing. We are dependent on what people are telling us those forecasts will be. And I think it's just helpful to set that background. There are two funds that are associated with the project. One is the maintenance fund, which is kind of like the current bank account, if you like, to fund the annual expenditure of the project. And we agreed, or the JSPB agreed a little while back, that we would keep the maintenance fund at a balance of roughly 3 years worth of expenditure. So that equates to about £2.5 million. We also have an endowment fund, which is the savings account, if you like, that we set up to make the investments from, etc. And I will talk more about those balances in a little while, so I won't cover this slide completely now. So on to the summary of the report. We have the final position for the latest financial year 25-26. So we got net income in for the project of £4.9 million, primarily from tariff income, but also we did have £0.8 million of dividend income and £500,000 thereabouts of bank interest receivable. And that includes the interest paid on the money that HCC holds within our bank accounts on behalf of the JSPB, but also we have a £10 million secure cash deposit, and we've accrued for the interest up to the end of the year that's on that deposit. Expenditure, £750,000. So obviously a really good net income balance there. Just picked out that the dividend income is approximately 5% return. You'll see why that's relevant a bit later. We tend to forecast based on a 4% return for prudence. Bank interest paid an average rate of 3.5%. And again, we tend to forecast based on 2% for prudence. However, worth noting that the reason we do that, we also assume a long-term inflation rate of 2% being the target inflation rate. And obviously we know inflation rate has been a little bit higher than quite a lot higher than that recently. But the key point to take away is that the in-year investment income is sufficient to fully fund the expenditure and allow a little bit extra to be put into the investment account, which is what we're aiming to do to ensure that long-term sustainability. If I move forward to the assets held at the end of March 2026, so within the maintenance fund, we had that £2.5 million cash balance to cover 3 years worth of expenditure. I don't know why I keep saying experience. In the endowment fund, so our savings account, the balance increased to £30.3 million at the end of March. Roughly half of that was held in investments, and that's the market value at March 2026. £10 million, as I said, was held in that secure cash deposit, and £5.4 million was held as cash. report covers the projected position for the 3 years to March 2029. And of course, we need to be really cautious with this because we're forecasting forward several years. So it's a projection, not a certainty. But cumulative net income across those 3 years is a total of £9.4 million that would be added to the endowment fund. Again, the majority of that from tariff income, with a sizable chunk from dividends and also bank interest. And the expenditure assumed at £2.5 million across those 3 years. As I said, dividend income forecast at 4%, bank interest assumed at 2%. So we would hope actually that we might get a little bit more income in that. The tariff income, I would say, is notoriously difficult to predict, so that does fluctuate. So far, we've seen more than we had been projecting. Again, really key point there that the investment income is projected to be sufficient to fully fund the expenditure in all 3 years and still have a surplus that we would be adding to the investment endowment account. And also just to what I'm talking about with the investment income is just the dividends and the bank interest. So that tariff income would also be going into the endowment account to increase that balance there. So conclusions in the report: financial position remaining positive for the project, obviously sizable amount added to the endowment fund, continuing to be able to cover the expenditure from the investment income, which is really positive. We've got that prudent balance in the maintenance fund, and our financial modelling has still given us reasonable assurance that we can keep the project going for the long term. However, we always add that caveat that it's not at all guaranteed, and we need to be making sure that the income coming in is more than the expenditure to make sure that we can keep building the pot to allow for inflation on expenditure. So that was all I was going to say by way of a summary of the paper. I've just added the recommendations there if that's easier, and then happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Chris?
Yep, straight in with the questions. From what I saw of the paper, and I did read it through it very quickly, I'm afraid, there seemed to be some projections that included about a 2% inflation estimate, and clearly inflation is closer to 3%. So what's been used in your estimates?
So the estimates here, the expenditure is actually based on the projections that we get from Natural England. So they take into account the actual pay award and the forecast pay awards that they're coming through. So it's the longer term that we tend to look at the 2% inflation to add on, just because that's the long-term target we're looking at, trying to do it in perpetuity. So it's a figure that's got a basis. When we come on to the investment working group update, you'll see we look at, well, what would happen if inflation did run at 3%? When might that mean the money might run out for the project? But we use the actual data or the best forecasts that we've got. If we haven't got that, then we'll look to the 2% for future forecasts going forward.
Okay, and I think 4% growth is a very low risk growth number from what I've seen. You can get bonds for that go on for ages. The other little question that then pops up into my mind was that, from what you've explained, it looks quite a healthy balance into the longer term. And does that represent any risk to, say, developer pressures to try and reduce the amount that they pay in tariff?
I think it's one where we look at the projections going forward longer term in the investment working group update and the modelling. The money only just lasts to the 80 years, and then it starts to tail off quite quickly, because obviously as soon as we hit the point where we're having to draw and dip into the capital balance to fund the expenditure, it starts to run out very, very quickly. What we're trying to do is keep that level whereby we have enough growth on the investment fund to cover the cost of inflation for the expenditure. So we are only ever aiming to get about a 2% return over above inflation to make sure that we're covering that growth and expenditure, if you like, but no more. So I think our modelling does show that we are going for a reasonable balance, not excessive, and that's why we always highlight it looks healthy, but there still remains that risk, and we are on almost a knife edge, if you like, that it could tip either way if we were to have a really rapid increase in expenditure or a sudden decline in income. So yeah, I don't think we're over egging.
Or another big change in inflation, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? No? In which case, are we happy to note the recommendations that come from the update and its associated position for the board? Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Not seeing anyone saying no, in which case, thank you for the update, and we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which I think means, sorry, I'm trying to do this on one screen and my Adobe keeps freezing today.
I think it's still me, hence keeping the
Yes, go for it.
slides up. Yeah.
Keep going.
So investment working group update. And hopefully you will have seen from when the agenda was circulated that we are currently down on members. We've had a couple of members stand down from the investment working group. So again, I've got a couple of introductory slides to introduce this. The agreement provides for, or we've said we would have 3 councillor members plus a representative from Arling Close on the investment working group. And the remit, as it says there, is to review and recommend policies, actions to the board with respect to the investments. But worth noting that the decisions must be made by the board in accordance with that independent financial advice provided by Arling Close. So should have 3 members. We've only got 1 at the moment. Our good chair is our sole remaining member. So we do have a couple of vacancies. I don't know whether we want to consider members at the end. Shall I keep going and then we'll come back to that? Is that easier? Yeah.
Keep going.
Okay, and just to emphasise again, where we are, if the board does decide that they want to make any investments, there are a number of requirements to ensure that we can do that. And again, this is, as I say, because it's Hampshire County Council making the investments on behalf of the board. So we must have written instructions that are in accordance with the independent financial advice. We just need to be aware that those investments will need to comply with HCC's investment strategy and approvals, and that's set out as Appendix 4, I think it is, to the investment working group update in more detail. But essentially it means we just need to be wary that it can take quite a lot of time from a decision being made by the board to make an investment to that investment actually being made by Hampshire County Council, because there are a number of hoops that we need to go through just to make sure we've got the proper authority and the protections in place. So just the main summary of the report then. So the investment strategy and the responsible investment policy, those are included as appendices to the report. We've received no comments from the investment working group on those by any members of the board. There are no changes that are proposed, so the recommendation is that those will just continue as they are. If members do have any comments on the 2 documents, we ask that those are referred to the investment working group so that they can consider those in a separate investment working group meeting outside of this board meeting. Otherwise, we had a tendency to make these board meetings very long with lots of discussions. So it's just that those points can be picked up outside of the board, and then the investment working group will come back to the board with proposals for any amendments if necessary that take into account any comments or feedback they have received. So just a quick summary of the investments held. Worth noting that these are based on what we purchased them for. So £15 million that we have spent on investments. You'll have seen from the financial update that the value was ever so slightly less than that. The Arling Close update that has been circulated separately via email to people as a confidential update shows that the current market value has actually climbed above what we purchased them for. So we're back up to positive equity before any selling costs, obviously. And also we have that 10 million secure deposit, which is due to mature in October of this year. So balances available for investment. The 25-26 is obviously the actuals that we have available, and then we look forward a couple of years to see what we would expect to have as a cash balance effectively with the endowment fund that would be available for investment. So currently at March we have 5.4 million, and just to note we've got that £10 million secured cash deposit maturing October, so it's not available yet, but it will be in October. And then looking forwards a couple of years, we're going up to just under and just over £20 million that would be held available for investment. So recommendations, again, that's just lifted straight from the report in the hope that that's easier for everybody to follow. And that was it from me.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Is there anyone that has an interest in filling the 2 slots that sit on the independent working group? Stare you all down now. We do. If anybody wants to have a conversation about the work it does, then please reach out and we can have that conversation. Or if you want to find out more about what the involvement is or what it's not an onerous responsibility in terms of time, but it is a vital one that we need to fill. So if anybody wants to have a conversation offline, please email through and then we'll get that set up. But we do need 2 volunteers to serve on this really important working group.
Mark, it would be really helpful if you could just outline what you expect from people in terms of commitment and knowledge or whatever.
I think it's an interesting one, and within the confines of what we're looking at. Jenny, do you want to kind of cover off before I add my views on it?
Yeah, so I think there was a little bit we tried to circulate with the agenda. You don't have to be an expert in financial investment because Arlen Close are there and they will give the advice and talk through what's going on. So it really is just to have somebody to act as a bit of a go-between, if you like, between Arlen Close and the board, who can listen to the full presentation that Arlen Close give us, interpret that for the board, and then just essentially it's normally to recommend that we follow Arlen Close's advice. So we're not looking for experts. We tend to have just 1 meeting a month before the main board meeting, which lasts an hour, maybe 2. If there were to be revisions to the policy, so the responsible investment policy and the investment strategy, potentially there would be a little bit more work to do. But again, Arlen Close are there to help support and advise on that. So hopefully that's helpful. It is something that any board member could do if they had an interest. And sorry, Councillor Dawn, it used to be Jonathan Glenn, your predecessor, was quite keen to be on the investment working group because of Hampshire's role as the banker, if you like. So although he then abstained from any decisions being made, he did like to keep that interest going, but not to put you on the
Also, he was a financial advisor.
He was a financial advisor who had a very good interest in it. We tend to have people actually who sit on the pension boards as well, who have that investment anyway and can use their knowledge from the pension boards to input if that's any help, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I mean, Mark, I'm happy to put my hand up if you like.
Good, thanks.
See how
Anyone else?
that goes. And
accepted.
Hopefully that encouraged some others. He looks around the screen, hopefully.
If anybody else, I mean, seriously, if anybody else does have, I've now lost the content again. If anybody else does have a view or interest, then just email me or email around and we can have a conversation. But I think, Chris, if we can have you on, that at least gives us 2. I'm just quite keen that it's not sensible to operate just with 1 person. But you don't need to have a detailed financial knowledge, but the ability to understand. The advice we get from Arlen Close is absolutely superb. So they support us well in what they're doing. Okay, so if we can pop those recommendations back up on the slide. On the screen, sorry. It's too hot. I can't now see. There we go. And if we're happy to, there we go. So there's a lot of recommendations on here that there's no proposed changes to the existing investment strategy, that we've got at least 1 new volunteer. We're looking for more. That the JSPB allows the contract with Arlen Close to continue to roll forward annually. So there's no action is really needed on it. It's just more of a note. That the amount available for investment is set out on table 4, etc. That we accept the advice of Arlen Close, which will be in the next section, which is the exempt item, and that we note the requirements and practical implications. So if there's anybody, Chris, sorry, your hand's up again.
Sorry, I'm in with another maybe very obvious question, but say Arlen Close, it rolls forward on an annual basis. Do we have to sort of retest that every X years. Probably one, yeah, one for Jenny.
Jenny.
Is it helpful for me to come in on this
Please
one?
do.
So it's a rolling contract. It renews automatically every December. We would need to give notice by the 1st of September. There are a couple of things that would be worth bearing in mind for the board. One is that Hampshire County Council have a contract with Arling Close. So the way we get that financial advice is by an extension of Hampshire County Council's contract with Arling Close on behalf of the board. So it would be quite logistically difficult to have a different financial advisor to the financial advisors that Hampshire County Council have. Also, at the time we were looking around for financial advisors, there were very few names on the table, and I think Arling Close was one of the few. So in some respects, there are a few options available to the board to change the financial advisors if we were to go down that route. I think it's more if we're happy with the advice or if the board is happy with the advice being provided by Arling Close, we allow that to continue. It's very difficult task to get different financial advisors in, but obviously that's up to the board to decide.
It's just sort of, with a lot of local authority or public bodies, you always want to sort of retest the market every few years, and I don't know if we'd had that opportunity. And while the advice may be good, is the cost for it high, and would others provide better advice? And that's just the sort of open question, not having seen all the detail yet. That's why I was just a little bit sensitive about just rolling it on for another year. It just feels a bit too comfortable.
I think it's a very fair and valid comment to make, and I guess as we have some of the other conversations rolling forward on local government review, etc., that may lead to other decisions or other reviews coming up. But as Jenny has said, when we've looked at this at great length before, it would be very hard, but not impossible, to decouple that investment advice, etc., to another body from Hampshire. But the opinion and views, and you'll see this as you go forward, of the support that we get, is that they are providing value for money for what we get, which is probably one of the biggest tests, and that the advice that we're getting is consistent and appropriate, and that the returns that we're seeing, etc., are in line with or above projections that we're doing on a I think quite a prudent, conservative basis.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, sort of.
Pretty much, but that's just to stress that it's not impossible, and at no point are we just kind of going, yeah, let's go for it, and just continue to roll it without any check and balance. That's not the case at all. This is just that motion of, are we happy to continue, at least especially whilst the local government review, etc., is currently going on.
I'm making a note. Mark said it was fine. Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, such pressure.
Yes,
Tim, I've got you first.
All those comments predicate the question. First of all, I'm quite happy that Arling Close is our advisor, particularly as they're tied up with Hampshire County Council. The first question, of course, is how long is the Arling Close agreement of checking out in December the same as Hampshire County Council's? And if it were to continue, are we going to change over with Hampshire County Council?
So I think on the question of the coterminosity of the agreement, I'll have to refer to Jenny. And I think on the other question of are we going, I think, if I'm honest, I think part of this conversation would be, it depends on what happened with the local government's review about where that goes, etc., or where we stick. I think until we know what the future looks like, I don't think we can answer that question. In terms of the coterminosity of the agreement with Arling Close and Hampshire County Council, Jenny, is there anything you can add to that?
No, it's essentially just an extension of the contract that Hampshire County Council has with Arling Close. So if there were to be any changes to Hampshire County Council's contract with Arling Close, then that's something that we would then need to bring back and consider what we do with the.
So it's basically conterminous.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Absolutely,
Good,
no
fine.
problem at all.
Good. Sorry, there was another hand up. Councillor Berman, did you have your hand up, or was that now dropped?
Yeah. No, it's still up. It was just a related point, but obviously, with LGR progressing, there may be a sort of natural point where there is a a reprocurement of services with the whatever the new authority is. So it would be good to try and ensure that the board are involved at least as a sort of consultative way in terms of that new appointment, new contract when it does come about, that we're not sort of just an afterthought because we've got not insignificant funds under investments.
It's
so I think
an
that would
excellent
be...
point. It's a very good point.
Sorry, it's just triggered another little question from
Go on,
me.
Chris.
Because of course, while Hampshire is there, when we go through LGR on this around the Hampshire area, I think most of this area sits in the sort of Rushmore, Basingstoke, Hart areas, and so it'd be North Hampshire Unitary that could possibly take on this oversight role. Is that a reasonable sort of assumption? Sorry, not oversight, the management of the admin bit that Jennifer's doing at the moment.
I think it's one of those ultimate questions of that would be a logical assumption, but we don't know.
Yeah, but this is LGR, yes.
No, logic and everything else. Mike, then I'll move us on in the interest of time.
Yeah, sorry, this may be more blue skies thinking, but one of the reasons the Hampshire collated it and the board spread as wide as it did was because of the number of local authorities, whereas now there's only going to be 3. Is it not possible that the 3 local authorities just manage the funds themselves in their own areas? It's much easier to coordinate an approach across 3 local authorities than 9 or 11 or whatever the Thames Basin Heaths area is. I just wonder if that's been considered, because one thing that Hart feel is that we give quite a lot of money to the SAM team, but not as much comes back to Hart and the Hart sites. And while it's a strategic approach across the whole area, we have in Hart the capacity to deliver what the SAM team does. We've got rangers, we've got comms officers, we've got external comms teams, internal engagement, education things. So we've had the thought as officers, would it be possible that when, as Councillor Dawn said, when North Hampshire is a thing, could we run our own section and do it that way? I don't know if that's been considered, because it would mean breaking up the administration of the SAM team, which I'm not saying I necessarily want or recommend, but 3 authorities is much easier to manage and potentially cover much larger areas than previously. Although I now see Simon, so actually I'm going to qualify that to at least 4 areas.
Simon.
But there are other agreements to be made in those sorts of ways.
Simon,
Yeah, hello.
to add a comment.
Yeah, it would be more than 3 because in Berkshire we've got unitaries, and there's at least 3 in Berkshire: Wokingham, Bracknell, and RBWM. So
yeah,
probably not a sensible idea at this time, but worth chucking it in.
I'm gonna move us forward just as time is running on rapidly. Is there any other questions on this, or are we happy to note the recommendations? Okay, I'm happy for those to be noted. So I think before we move on to the final exempt section of the agenda, I do want to go back to Guy's comment about reviewing one of our groups. Guy, do you want to just, you've got more experience of this. Do you want to just set up what the purpose of this group was for?
Sure. So this is a joint officers councillor working group, and I believe there are some other representatives on board that works to examine what the joint framework will look like, what the SAM agreement will look like. And I think it's been a while since the councillor side of it was refreshed in terms of the membership. So I think it's worth just checking if those who are currently on it, which if memory serves are myself and Councillor Dibble, still want to do it. And I know Councillor Dibble isn't here, but I think we can assume he would still like to carry on, and whether anyone else would like to join the group, because I think having more than 2 is pretty essential. And it doesn't meet often, I should say. In fact, it hasn't met in a while. We need to work that out, really. But
well, I was going to say it probably needs to meet sometime soon as well. if anybody wants to put their name forward or wants to know more information, can I suggest they email Guy, unless anyone has a burning hand raising? I'd like to be on this now. If not, we can deal with this afterwards, but we do need to get this refreshed and just agreed again. And I think from a good governance perspective, as we go through the annual process with all of these, just to revise and reconfirm everyone's membership. So I have 2 at the moment. If anybody else is interested, Guy, maybe you could send around a very brief summary, perhaps, to people about what the group has done, and then if anyone has any questions, have a look at that. And actually, to be fair, I'll do the same for the investment working group as well, and we can go from there. And yeah, Heather, you're absolutely right. It's all related. Okay, if there is nothing else on that section and there's nothing else to raise in the public section of the meeting, I'd like to move to agenda item 8, which is the exclusion of public and press, and that to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of item 9, as it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, part 1, schedule 12AA of the Local Government Act 1972. Which is information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, which includes the authority. Can I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll put my hand up. I think you're probably not seeing it.
Thank you very much. I don't always see the hands going up. It's quite, sometimes Teams plays ball, sometimes it doesn't.
Sorry, I waved in the window rather than.
Oh no, I didn't see that. I might see the hand going up. Anyone not in favour of that? Okay, fine. So that measure is approved. And then can I ask that we now move rapidly into closed session and let me know when the stream has ended. And then we just need to make sure that everyone that should be removed is removed.
Thank you, Chair. Just give me 2 minutes whilst I do that. I'll appear again once we've done that.